So here we are at Terminator 3, Rise of the Machines, the much maligned third entry into the Terminator franchise. But what are my thoughts on this film? That's what we're here to discuss. So let's get into it. Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel and welcome to my revisit review series of the Terminator franchise, which begun with me watching and reviewing The Terminator, the 4K release. 24 hours later, I jumped to Terminator 2. Then after Terminator 2, I decided to bypass everything else and jump directly to Dark Fate. Reason being, obviously, Dark Fate is like the new Terminator 3, so to speak. It dismisses everything after Terminator 2 and sits squarely after that movie. And I wanted to see where it actually worked. I've never watched the film off of the back of Terminator 2, least of all with a 24-hour gap between the two. Find out how that works out for me in my previous reviews. So here we are at Terminator 3. This film was released in 2003 with a rating of 12A and a runtime of just shy of 2 hours. It was directed by Jonathan Mostow, not James Cameron. Jonathan Mostow had given us the excellent Kurt Russell thriller Breakdown and also the story that rewrote the Enigma machine capture of World War II submarine movie U-571. Arnold Schwarzenegger did return in the role of the Terminator. He seeks approval from James Cameron to do this film. James Cameron said, take the money. Make sure you get a lot of it. And Arnie did. Edward Furlong didn't return as John Connor because of his drug problem. And they cast Nick Stahl as a 25-year-old John Connor, now living off of the grid. Linda Hamilton didn't reprise her role. Sadly, her character had been written out of the series in that she had died of leukemia. We come to find this out about halfway through the movie. She lived long enough to see that Judgment Day didn't happen, and then she died in Baja. Yeah, which is kind of a link to Terminator Dark Fate, I assume, where John Connor dies at the beginning. Nice to have that. We're also given the character of Catherine Brewster. Catherine Brewster being played by Claire Danes, who you may know from the Homeland TV series that lasted for 7 or 8 seasons. And this film here again sees a Terminator sent back in time to kill, not John Connor, but to kill Claire Danes and the rest of John Connor's lieutenants in the future. Because the Terminators now can't find John Connor, they're going after other heads of the Resistance. The Terminator comes in the form of Kristanna Loken, the first female Terminator that we've seen, that plays a cyborg covered in a liquid metal with the ability to form weapons out of her hand. Arnie is sent back as a T-850, an upgrade on the T-800, as the saviour, as the protector of Claire Danes. And this story begins with us catching up with John Connor on the road, working cash-in-hand jobs. He has an accident. He ends up in a veterinary clinic actually run by Claire Danes. Fate has brought them back together, and the Terminators are on their case. And what we get is a Terminator movie that sees her and John Connor coming together while trying to escape the clutches of the TX, protected by Arnie's T-850. And they're on the cusp of the new Judgment Day. Yes, Judgment Day never happened, but what happened to it is it was actually postponed. It's due to happen. It will happen. It's just the timelines have shifted and it's now going to happen later on than what it did. But by later on, we mean almost later that day. Skynet is coming online. It's becoming self-aware and is going to launch the attack. Claire Danes, Catherine Brewster's father, is the sort of army general that's responsible for Skynet coming online. So they have to make their way to him to try and save him, believing that he's the only one who can actually shut Skynet down. And thusly, we're given a formulaic Terminator movie, because they are pretty all formulaic for the most part, where you have gunfights, robot-on-robot action, big car and truck chases, etc., etc. And that's your film there. So I'll be honest, I get a lot of enjoyment out of this film. I think that this is a very, very good popcorn movie. Okay, it wasn't needed. It's a film that wasn't needed. Terminator didn't really need to go beyond Terminator 2 at all. And everything that came after Terminator 2 isn't as good as what came prior to it. However, this film here, I don't have any issues with it whatsoever. By saying whatsoever, that's a bit of a broad statement in terms. There's the humorous side of it, and a lot of people do have issues with this. Arnie going into the strip club, getting the clothes off of the stripper, the scene with the glasses that admittedly then takes off and stumps on them. But a lot of this humour actually began in Terminator 2, and that film gets a pass for it. But here it gets stamped on, although it is ramped up somewhat. But at least you ain't got Arnie smiling. The one thing that I do like about this film overall is the character that Arnold Schwarzenegger plays. Because his Terminator is still... he isn't nice. He's not a nice Terminator. This geezer will grab these people and start, you know, looking them over to see that they're okay. He doesn't care. He's kind of very rough handling with them, and I quite like that about his demeanour in this film. Nick Starr was a replacement for Edward Furlong for me. I know that this is a bone of contention for a lot of people, this character change. I never liked Edward Furlong. I don't like Edward Furlong at all, so I had no issue with that. And, you know, Nick Starr, I thought he was fine. I thought he was fine in the role. Probably not the best person you could cast as John Connor, but I thought he'd done okay with it. Although when he is in old man makeup in that one scene, he is giving me David Jason vibes for some unknown reason. This film here, Kristanna Loken, I think this was her first film, as I recall, and she does a wonderful job as the TX. She's menacing, she's evil. There's some good parts for this character. There's some good stuff written into this character. The ability to control other machines, the stuff where she's analysing DNA by tasting the blood and things like this. There's a kind of, you know, after the T-1000 and the original Terminator, there hasn't been another Terminator, evil Terminator, that's captured that evil vibe quite like what Kristanna Loken did in this movie. She does show a bit of emotion towards the end of the film, but not her, I say. She's lost all of her skin and that sort of thing, but the robot, there's a bit of emotion written into it, which is a bit annoying at the end, where Arnie's grabbing her and pulling her back under the big door and this sort of a thing. But this film here is spectacular. It's spectacular from beginning to end. It doesn't waste a beat. It's fast-paced. It's got the action, the special effects. The Terminator has never looked better, right? You know, when Arnie steps out of the crashed helicopter at the end, and you can actually see through, you know, and you can see through the leg and the arm and the bits and all this. We've never had that before. You know, it's always been, you know, the effects weren't there to do it. Okay, it was always prosthetics on the face and this sort of thing. Here we have got some glorious CGI that works, goes through the face. You can see through, you can see what's behind, and this is at a point in time where CGI worked nicely with realistic components and this sort of a thing, where something, rather than something being really heavily CGI, there are a couple of moments in the film like that do let it down. I'm thinking of Kristanna Loken's character being thrown through the gravestone and things like that do look a bit, and there's a few bits like that in the fight in the toilets at the Skynet place. But overall, you know, they feel tangible. Things feel tangible in this film. The Terminators feel like they've got weight to them, as in when you look at Dark Fate and you've got the Terminator bounding around like there's no weight to it, like physics don't apply. Here you've got Arnie swinging on the crane of the truck, hitting an ambulance and throwing that ambulance over because of the weight of him compared to the weight of the ambulance and what he's done to that by hitting it, things like that. When Kristanna Loken jumps off of the ridge on top of the fleeing hearse, this sort of thing. It looks great. There's some really great practical effects and stunts in this movie that look fantastic. That whole scene with the truck, that car chase, you know, I think out of the entire franchise, that's one of the best car chases I've seen committed to screen, to be honest. It looks fantastic. It really does. So this film here, it's all, you know, I enjoy it. I really do enjoy this movie. Okay. And then not only that, the end of the film. The end of the film is so powerful and brave. It's very rare that Hollywood will give you a downer of the ending. You know, think The Mist and things like that. This film here has an ending that is, you know, that we rarely get in Hollywood pictures, because they want to leave you happy. They want you to come back. They don't want you to leave on a downer. But here we are at the end of this film, when the realization of the whole movie comes about, to the point where we know that they failed, that Judgment Day has happened, that the Terminator wasn't ever there to help them stop Judgment Day. It was there to ensure that these two characters survived Judgment Day, while the rest of the human race gets annihilated for the most part. It's fantastic. And John Connor's story arc through this film, he's at a point at the beginning where he doesn't, you know, Judgment Day hasn't happened. He doesn't like all the stuff that's happened to him, the leader of the human race. He's tired of it. He's fed up of it. He's living off the grid, and he wishes he didn't have to. He doesn't want to be this big saviour that he's made out to be. And then at the end of the film, just as the rockets start to fly, you get that scene of acceptance in him. The bit where the radios go off and they say, "Who's in charge there?" And he says, "I am." That's his character accepting his fate in that very scene. And that's powerful stuff. There's some powerful moments within this film, even though this film is more akin to a popcorn chase movie that's just there to have fun. There are some powerful moments there in the movie that really, really work. For me, at least. I know, like I said, this movie is much derived, but I do get a lot of fun out of it. I think it is a highlight of the Terminator franchise outside of the first two movies. I really do. Yeah, so this one here is a winner for me, most definitely. I have a lot of fun with it. I have a lot of fun on rewatches with it. I think the film looks great. I think Arnie on it is in top form, giving us a kind of darker, almost nastier Terminator to a degree. And it's got some good character beats in it. There's nothing in this film that actually lets me down, apart from a few of the humorous moments. It's a solid win for the Terminator franchise from where I'm sat. Let me know your thoughts on this one in the comments down below.